My precious child, listen carefully, because what I am about to reveal is not ordinary, it is urgent, it is divine, and it is about what happened while you were sleeping. Last night, while your eyes were closed and your body was resting, a danger moved toward your house. You did not hear it. You did not see it. You did not even feel it. But heaven saw it clearly. And Jesus is weeping right now, not because you were attacked, but because you do not yet understand how close it came. He says, I protected you from a deadly attack you didn't even see last night. This is not symbolic. This is not dramatic language. This is a real spiritual intervention that took place over your life. There was a moment, sometime in the deep hours of the night, when something was assigned against your peace. It was aimed at your house. It was aimed at your stability. It was aimed at your future. But before it could touch your door, before it could cross your threshold, before it could disturb a single breath in your room, he stood in front of it. Jesus himself formed a hedge around your home. And now he is speaking with tears in his voice because your silence is breaking his heart. You woke up this morning and continued your routine. You checked your phone. You moved through your tasks. You worried about small things. But you did not stop to ask, Lord, what did you shield me from? That silence, that unawareness is what makes him weep. You think nothing happened. But heaven knows something almost did. There are moments in life when protection is louder than attack. And last night was one of them. You were being watched, but not by harm. By angels. You were being surrounded, but not by fear. By light. There was a shift in the atmosphere around your house. A spiritual confrontation that never reached your physical world because it was intercepted before it manifested. And here is the part that will shake you. There are only 7 minutes left for you to respond to this divine intervention. Why 7? Because 7 is the number of completion, a number of God, the number of divine order. Heaven is not asking you for hours, not days, not rituals, just 7 focused minutes of acknowledgement. 7 minutes to break your silence. 7 minutes to say, Jesus, I see you. I thank you. I accept your protection. If you ignore this moment, if you scroll past this message, if you treat it as coincidence, the hedge that was reinforced last night will begin to weaken by dawn. This is not about fear. This is about alignment. Protection flows where recognition lies. Jesus is not threatening you. He is inviting you. He says, I do not force my covering on those who refuse to acknowledge my hand. Right now, you are standing in a spiritual window, a divine pause, a sacred gap between what almost happened and what was prevented. And he is asking you to open your heart before the night turns into morning again. There was a whisper released in the spirit over your home, not this one, not tonight. That whisper came from the throne. Something had been circling. Something had been planning. But it was stopped. Why? Because your destiny still has assignments left. Because your name is still written in purpose. Because your house carries something that darkness cannot afford to see rise. And this is why Jesus is weeping over your silence. He does not want your fear. He wants your awareness. He does not want your panic. He wants your partnership. There are many who were not shielded last night the way you were. Many who woke up to chaos. Many who faced sudden loss, sudden shaking, sudden crisis. But you woke up safe. And safety is not random. He says, I stood between you and something you never even noticed. Can you feel the weight of that? You were one invisible step away from disruption. But mercy blocked it. Now here is the urgency. The hedge around your house is sustained by relationship, not routine. If you continue in silence, if you refuse to open your mouth in gratitude, if you dismiss this warning that spiritual covering can thin, heaven responds to voice. The angels move at acknowledgement. The atmosphere shifts when you speak. That is why this moment matters. You have only 7 minutes left to accept this divine intervention. Not 7 minutes of fear. 7 minutes of surrender. Not 7 minutes of confusion. 7 minutes of clarity. Close your eyes after this message. Step into a quiet space. Speak his name. Thank him specifically for last night's protection, even if you do not know what it was. Because he knows, and he is watching to see if you will respond. Your house is not ordinary. Your life is not random. The protection was not accidental. Something tried to enter. Something was denied. And now something holy is waiting for your answer. The question is not whether Jesus protected you. He did. The question is whether you will break your silence before dawn. Beloved soul, something is shifting in the atmosphere even as you listen to this. You may still be wondering, what exactly was this deadly attack? But understand this clearly. Many attacks are not always visible events. Some are assignments meant to enter through stress, confusion, sudden arguments, unexplained fear, or strange heaviness in your home. The enemy does not always knock loudly. Sometimes it tries to slip in quietly through cracks in awareness. Last night, there was a plan to disturb the peace of your house. It was not random. It was strategic. There are forces that study patterns. They wait for moments of exhaustion. They look for silence. They search for spiritual gaps. And when they detect distance between you and your prayer life, they attempt to move. But Jesus saw the movement before it reached your door. He says, I intercepted what was released. You understand what that means. Something was already in motion. This was not imagination. It was an assignment. And it was heading toward your space, toward your rest, toward your safety. And here is what makes him weep even more deeply. He protected you, yet you have been slowly withdrawing. Your prayers have become shorter. Your gratitude has become quieter. Your dependence has become thinner. Not because you stopped loving him, but because life distracted you. Silence does not always mean rebellion. Sometimes it means drift. And drift creates openings. Last night was not just protection. It was a wake-up call wrapped in mercy. There was a moment around your house when the spiritual temperature changed. If you pay attention, you might even remember waking briefly for no reason, or sensing something you could not explain. That was the interception. That was the shift. Jesus stepped into that space and reinforced the hedge around your home. Not because you earned it yesterday, but because his love still covers you. Yet he is calling you back into active agreement. Protection is strongest when there is partnership. If you remain silent, the hedge weakens gradually, not because he abandons you, but because covenant requires response. Relationship cannot be one-sided forever. And this is why this message is urgent. You were spared from something that would have shaken your household deeply. It could have caused conflict. It could have triggered sudden loss. It could have opened a door that would take months to close. But it did not manifest, because heaven blocked it. Right now, you are being invited into alignment before another attempt is made. The enemy does not quit after one failure, but neither does Jesus stop guarding those who return to him fully. There is still time to seal what was reinforced last night. Speak gratitude. Declare your house covered. Invite His presence intentionally. And understand this, your silence is not just about words, it is about spiritual posture. Have you been consuming more noise than truth? Have you been trusting your strength more than His? Have you allowed busyness to replace intimacy? These are not accusations. They are invitations. Jesus is not condemning you. He is drawing you back. And listen carefully. This is the moment where you decide whether this message becomes transformation or just another video you scroll past. If this is speaking directly to your spirit, do not ignore that stirring inside you. Let it move you. Let it awaken something deeper. Engage with this message. Type your agreement in the comments. Declare that you receive divine protection. When you comment, you are not just typing words, you are making a spiritual statement. Share this message with someone whose house needs covering too. You never know who barely escaped something last night. Spread the warning. Spread the awareness. Subscribe and stand with this channel so that more people can hear these urgent calls from heaven. Become part of a community that refuses to live in silence. Because what is happening here is not entertainment. It is alignment. And hold on, because what is about to be revealed next will show you why this attack was specifically targeting your household. There is a deeper reason behind last night's interception, and once you see it, everything will make sense. You were not randomly protected. You were strategically preserved. There is something connected to your house, something future, something generational, something powerful. And that is exactly why darkness tried to approach quietly, but it failed. And now the question remains, will you respond loudly enough in the spirit to ensure it fails again? The next revelation will uncover the real motive behind the attack, and you need to understand it fully before dawn approaches again. Chosen one, the reason behind last night's interception is deeper than you think. This was not a random disturbance. It was not an accident. It was not a wandering force that mistakenly passed by your house. It was targeted. And the reason it was targeted is because your home carries something that threatens darkness. There is a calling resting over your household. Not just over you, but over the walls, the rooms, the conversations, the future generations connected to that address. Your house is not just a structure of bricks and doors. It is a spiritual territory. And territories that carry purpose always attract resistance. Jesus is weeping because he sees what you do not see. He sees the potential that has not yet unfolded. He sees the prayers that were whispered years ago that are about to manifest. He sees the breakthrough that is closer than you realize. And when breakthrough approaches, opposition often attempts to strike first. Last night was a preemptive strike that failed. Something tried to create disruption before your next season begins. You may have been sensing change lately. A stirring, a tension, a feeling that something new is about to happen. That is not imagination. That is transition. And transition periods are sensitive. They are sacred. They are also vulnerable. When you move from one level to another, there is a brief window where you are no longer fully in the old season, but not yet fully in the new one. That window is where attacks often try to land. But Jesus stood in that window. He says, "Your house will not be shaken before I establish what I promised." This is why silence is dangerous right now. Because when you remain quiet during a transition, you unintentionally allow doubt to speak louder than faith. And doubt creates cracks. Small ones at first. But cracks are invitations. The hedge around your house was reinforced last night. But reinforcement requires agreement. Heaven is not asking for perfection. Heaven is asking for participation. You must understand something powerful. The attack was not primarily about harm. It was about interruption. If your peace had been disturbed, if chaos had entered, it would have distracted you from what God is building next. Distraction is one of the enemy's favorite tools. If he cannot destroy destiny, he tries to delay it. If he cannot remove purpose, he tries to exhaust it. And if he cannot enter your house physically, he attempts to enter through atmosphere, through tension, misunderstanding, heaviness, or sudden emotional storms. But the storm did not land, because Jesus guarded the gate. And now he is asking you to guard it with him. Your house must become a place of declaration again, a place where his name is spoken openly, a place where gratitude fills the air, a place where you do not assume protection, but activate it with awareness. There is something coming to your household that requires stability, a blessing, an opportunity, a shift. And the enemy wanted instability before arrival, but it was denied. Let this truth settle deeply in your spirit. You were preserved because you are necessary. Your household is necessary. Your peace is necessary. Your future is necessary. And heaven does not defend what is insignificant. Right now, there is a thin spiritual veil between gratitude and vulnerability. If you lean into gratitude, the hedge strengthens. If you remain passive, the covering weakens gradually over time. This is not about fear. This is about stewardship. Jesus is not weeping because he doubts you. He is weeping because he longs for you to understand your value. He sees the attack that failed. You only see the quiet mourning that followed. But heaven remembers the confrontation, and heaven is waiting for your response. Before dawn returns again, take time to speak life over your house. Walk through your rooms if you must. Declare peace. Declare covering. Declare that what was blocked last night will never gain access. Your words matter more than you realize. Your agreement matters more than you think. And your response right now is sealing something in the spirit. If this message is resonating deeply within you, do not treat it as coincidence. Type "My house is covered" in the comments if this is speaking to your spirit. Lesson code 1444 has just been released over your home. As you type it, you are aligning your voice with heaven's defense. Now listen carefully. This channel is not just a place of messages. It is a gate where warnings, protection, and awakening are released to thousands who might otherwise remain unaware. When you support this mission, you are not funding a platform. You are fueling light. You are helping the word reach homes that are one silent night away from chaos. Scripture declares, as long as the earth remains, seed time and harvest shall not cease. This is not just ink on a page. This is God speaking over you right now. When you sow into what protects souls, you reap covering over your own house. When you release support, you activate harvest in unseen realms. If you feel the stirring in your spirit, that is not pressure. That is invitation. When you give through super thanks, when you become a member, or when you sow through the PayPal link in the description, you are planting oil into a lamp that refuses to go out. You are saying, let more houses be warned. Let more families be covered. And I declare over every seed sown tonight, your house will remain under divine guard. Your obedience will not return empty. What you release will return multiplied in protection and provision. Do not hesitate when heaven prompts you. Move with obedience. Seal this moment. Strengthen this mission. Let your action echo your gratitude. The next revelation will uncover why the timing of this protection is connected to something approaching your life very soon. Faithful one, the timing of last night's protection is not random. It is connected to something approaching your life much sooner than you expect. There is a shift forming around you, not a small adjustment, not a minor change, a significant transition. Something is aligning behind the scenes that will reposition you spiritually, emotionally, and even practically. And whenever elevation approaches, resistance attempts to rise first. That is why the interception happened now. You are standing at the edge of a doorway. You may not see the door yet, but heaven does. It is an opportunity, a conversation, a decision, or a breakthrough that will influence the direction of your house. And because this moment carries weight, the enemy tried to create instability before you could step into it. If chaos had entered last night, your focus would have shifted. Your clarity would have been clouded. Your energy would have been drained. And when destiny knocked, you might not have been ready to answer. But Jesus guarded your readiness. He says, "I preserved your peace because you will need it for what is coming." Peace is not just comfort. It is positioning. When your atmosphere is calm, you can hear instruction clearly. When your house is stable, you can recognize opportunity without fear. When your spirit is aligned, you can move with confidence instead of confusion. Last night's attack was an attempt to steal my position. And here is something even deeper. The timing of protection is proof of assignment. You are not being guarded because you are fragile. You are being guarded because you are strategic. There is something about your next season that will impact more than just you. It may bless your family. It may shift your finances. It may open a new path. It may even change how others see you. But whatever it is, it carries influence. And influence attracts opposition. Do not misunderstand this. Opposition does not mean you are doing something wrong. Often, it means you are doing something right. Jesus sweeps over your silence because silence can make you forget how close you are to breakthrough. When you remain quiet spiritually, you risk underestimating the magnitude of what God is preparing. There have been preparation in hidden places, conversations in the unseen realm about your future, alignments that you cannot detect yet. And last night's interception was heaven saying, "Not before the promise." You may have been feeling pressure recently, a subtle weight, a sense that something is building but not yet visible. That pressure is not always negative. Sometimes it is the tension of transition. Think of a door about to open. There is always a moment when it resists slightly before it swings wide. That resistance does not mean the door is locked. It means it is about to move. The enemy sensed movement, and he attempted interruption. But interruption was denied. Now here is what you must understand clearly. Divine intervention is not permanent without participation. Protection increases when alignment increases. If you lean back into passivity, you create vulnerability over time. If you lean forward into gratitude and awareness, you strengthen the covering. You are being invited into spiritual alertness, not fear. There is a difference. Fear focuses on what could go wrong. Alertness focuses on staying aligned with what is right. Jesus is not asking you to become anxious about every shadow. He is asking you to become intentional about your atmosphere. What enters your home through conversation? What enters through media? What enters through attitude? These subtle doorways matter more than you realize, because what is coming next will require clarity. You cannot afford distraction. You cannot afford division. You cannot afford spiritual sleep. Last night was a warning wrapped in mercy. The hedge was reinforced, but it must be maintained. Something significant is approaching your household. It may appear as good news. It may appear as a challenge that turns into favor. It may appear as a decision that feels heavy at first, but whatever form it takes, it is connected to purpose. And that is why the enemy moved early. He wanted instability before increase. He wanted confusion before clarity. He wanted silence before declaration. But heaven intervened. Now you stand in a powerful position. You are aware. You are informed. You know that protection was activated. And awareness changes everything. Do not return to unconscious living. Let your house become intentional territory. Let your words become protective walls. Let your gratitude become reinforcement. Because what is approaching is not small. The next revelation will show you how your response in these hours determines whether the coming shift will feel like pressure or promotion. And that understanding will change how you see this entire moment. Child of destiny, what is approaching your life can either feel like pressure or promotion, and the difference will be determined by your response right now. Many people misinterpret divine shifts. When something new begins to form, it often carries weight. Responsibility increases. Expectations rise. Old habits are exposed. Weak foundations become visible. And if you are not spiritually aligned, that weight can feel overwhelming. But when you are aligned, the same weight feels like growth. Last night's protection was not only about stopping danger, it was about preserving your capacity. Jesus knew that what is coming requires strength. If your peace had been shattered, if your focus had been broken, you would have entered this next phase depleted instead of prepared. He says, I guarded your night so you could step into your morning with clarity. There is something powerful about mornings in the spirit. Morning represents renewal, fresh instruction, and new assignments. The enemy often targets the night because if he can disturb your rest, he can weaken your morning. But your morning was protected. Now you must choose how you interpret the days ahead. If you respond in silence, treating last night as coincidence, the coming shift may feel like pressure. You may feel stretched. You may feel tested. You may question whether you are ready. But if you respond with gratitude and alignment, the same shift will feel like promotion. You will recognize opportunities quickly. You will discern conversations wisely. You will move with unusual peace. Promotion requires preparation, and preparation often begins with awareness. There has been a quiet molding process happening in your life. Challenges you faced recently were not random. Delays you experienced were not meaningless. Even disappointments had purpose. They were shaping your endurance, strengthening your discernment, refining your priorities. The enemy saw the shaping and panicked, because shaping leads to elevation, and elevation expands influence. If you rise into a new level spiritually or practically, your house becomes a beacon. Others begin to look to you for guidance, stability, and wisdom. That kind of influence threatens darkness because light exposes what prefers to remain hidden. That is why interruption was attempted. What it failed. Now listen carefully. The next few days are sensitive. Not dangerous, but decisive. Small decisions will carry larger consequences than usual. Words spoken in frustration could echo longer. Choices made in haste could redirect momentum. This is not meant to frighten you. It is meant to awaken you. You are being positioned carefully. Jesus is weeping over your silence because silence during transition is risky. When you do not actively invite His guidance, you rely on instinct alone. And instinct, though helpful, is limited. Divine instruction goes beyond instinct. There may be a conversation approaching that will test your humility. There may be an opportunity that looks smaller than you expected but carries hidden potential. There may be a moment where patience will determine outcome. If your spirit is quiet but attentive, you will recognize these moments. If your spirit is distracted, you may overlook them. The hedge around your house was reinforced not just to block harm, but to create a stable platform for growth. Growth requires stability. Stability requires alignment. Alignment requires participation. This is the chain, and you are standing in the link that determines how the chain continues. You may wonder, why is heaven so urgent about this? Because destiny windows do not remain open forever. They are time-sensitive. When God aligns circumstances, He expects readiness. Last night was a declaration. This one is not to be delayed. Something that could have postponed your progress was denied entry. Now the question is whether you will step forward boldly or retreat into passivity. Your emotion often feels uncomfortable at first. It stretches your identity. It challenges your old self-perception. It forces you to release familiar patterns. But pressure without purpose crushes. Pressure with purpose refines. The enemy wanted to introduce pressure without purpose through deception. Jesus blocked it so that any pressure you feel in this season will be tied to growth, not chaos. There is a refining happening, a strengthening, a quiet fortifying of your inner life. You are not the same person you were months ago. You are more aware, more discerning, more capable than you realize. Heaven sees it, and heaven is investing protection into it. Do not waste this protection by slipping back into spiritual sleep. Speak life over your days. Invite guidance into your decisions. Guard your atmosphere intentionally, because what is forming is bigger than a single event. It is a repositioning. The next revelation will uncover how someone connected to your life may react to your shift, and why that reaction could either support your promotion or attempt to pull you back into old patterns. And you must be ready for that moment when it arrives. Warrior of faith, as your shift begins to unfold, not everyone around you will understand what is happening. When elevation approaches, it does not only change your circumstances, it changes your posture. Your tone shifts. Your tolerance for negativity decreases. Your hunger for purpose increases. And those who were comfortable with the older version of you may feel unsettled by the emerging one. This is where discernment becomes critical. The protection over your house last night was not just about blocking an unseen force. It was also about stabilizing you before relational tension tries to rise. Because when growth begins, relationships are tested. Someone connected to your life may react to your shift. It may be subtle, a dismissive comment, a discouraging word, a suggestion that you are doing too much or changing too fast. It may not sound hostile. It may even sound caring. But beneath it could be discomfort with your transformation. Not everyone celebrates evolution. Some people benefit from your smallness. When you begin to rise, their comfort zone feels threatened. This does not mean you must cut people off. It means you must stay spiritually alert. Because if you internalize their doubt, your promotion can start to feel like pressure again. Jesus wept over your silence because silence makes you vulnerable to outside voices. When you are not actively hearing His voice, you will automatically amplify others. Last night's interception preserved more than your safety. It preserved your confidence. If chaos had entered your house, your emotional state would already be fragile. And fragile minds are easily influenced. But your peace remained intact. Now you must guard it intentionally. There may soon be a moment where you will need to choose between comfort and calling. Comfort will sound familiar. Calling will feel stretching. Comfort will ask you to slow down. Calling will urge you forward. And here is the truth. Growth always feels lonely before it feels celebrated. You are not abandoning anyone by stepping into your next level. You are honoring what God placed inside you. But the enemy often uses familiar voices to create hesitation. That is why awareness is everything in this hour. If you notice tension rising unexpectedly, pause. Do not react immediately. Do not defend aggressively. Do not shrink yourself either. Step back internally and ask for clarity. Sometimes silence in conversation is wisdom. Sometimes firm boundaries are necessary. Your house must remain an environment of alignment. Do not allow unnecessary arguments to crack the atmosphere. Do not let small misunderstandings escalate. Choose peace deliberately. And understand this deeply. The enemy prefers internal division over external attack. If he cannot strike from outside, he attempts to stir from within. Last night's failure may shift tactics, but you are prepared. If this message is resonating with you, if you can already sense certain dynamics around you, do not ignore that intuition. Engage with this truth. Declare in the comments that you choose alignment over distraction. When you speak it publicly, you strengthen it privately. Share this message with someone who is in a season of growth but facing relational tension. They need this awareness too. Subscribe and remain connected here because these revelations are not random. They are timely. Stand with this channel, support it, and become part of a movement that values spiritual alertness over passive living. And listen closely now, because what is coming next will help you identify the difference between healthy challenge and strategic opposition. You will need that clarity very soon. There is also something important about timing. The coming days will reveal who truly supports your next level and who is attached to your past. Pay attention to reactions. Not just words but energy. Not just statements but consistency. You are not meant to isolate yourself, but you are meant to mature. Maturity means you no longer seek validation from every voice. Maturity means you weigh advice carefully. Maturity means you can love people without letting them limit you. Jesus did not protect you last night for you to remain small. He protected you because expansion is near. And expansion requires courage. Courage to move forward even when applause is absent. Courage to trust divine direction even when others hesitate. Courage to keep your house peaceful even if outside opinions grow louder. Do not confuse opposition with confirmation to retreat. Sometimes resistance is confirmation that you are on the correct path. But discernment is necessary so that you do not fight imaginary battles or ignore real warnings. The next revelation will show you how to identify when a challenge is meant to refine you and when it is meant to derail you. And the difference will determine whether this season becomes your greatest rise or a missed opportunity. Anointed one, there is a profound difference between a challenge that refines you and an attack that attempts to derail you. If you misunderstand this difference, you may resist the very process meant to elevate you, or you may tolerate the very interference meant to stop you. Refinement from God produces clarity, even when it feels uncomfortable. Derailment from the enemy produces confusion, even when it looks subtle. When God refines you, He exposes areas that need strengthening, but He also provides peace in the middle of the stretching. You may feel challenged, but you will not feel chaotic. You may feel corrected, but you will not feel condemned. There is always an undercurrent of assurance that you are being shaped for something higher. But when the enemy attempts to derail you, the atmosphere shifts differently. Suddenly there is heaviness without explanation. Doubt increases without evidence. Small problems feel enormous. Conversations become unusually tense. You begin questioning things that were previously clear. That is the difference. Last night's intercepted attack was not refinement. It was derailment. It was designed to introduce confusion before clarity could fully manifest in your life. It was meant to exhaust you emotionally so that when the next opportunity arrived, you would hesitate. Jesus stepped in because what is ahead of you requires stability of mind. There is something forming that will demand quick but wise decisions. If your spirit is unsettled, you might either rush prematurely or delay unnecessarily. Both extremes can cost momentum. This is why silence is so dangerous in this hour. When you remain spiritually disengaged, you lose sensitivity to these distinctions. Everything begins to feel the same. You may label a divine stretch as attack and resist it, where you may label strategic interference as normal difficulty and tolerate it. Discernment protects destiny. You must begin paying attention to the fruit of what you are experiencing. Does it produce clarity or confusion? Does it strengthen your peace or steal it? Does it draw you closer to purpose or distract you from it? Refinement strengthens focus. Derailment scatters it. You may soon encounter a situation that appears challenging. It could be a new responsibility, a demanding task, or an unexpected opportunity that stretches your abilities. Do not immediately assume resistance. Ask yourself, is there peace beneath the pressure? If there is peace, lean in. That is growth. But if there is ongoing confusion, relational division without resolution, or a persistent heaviness that clouds your thinking, pause and pray intentionally. That may be interference trying to disguise itself as normal difficulty. Last night proved that heaven is actively invested in your stability. Protection was not passive. It was deliberate. And deliberate protection signals deliberate purpose. There is something specific God is aligning you toward. Perhaps it is a leadership role. Perhaps it is a creative assignment. Perhaps it is a financial breakthrough that will require stewardship. Perhaps it is a relocation of mindset, more the location. Whatever it is, it will require confidence. The enemy attempted to weaken your internal foundation before this shift became visible. Because if your internal world collapses, your external opportunities lose impact. But you were preserved. Now you must strengthen what was protected. Spend time restoring intimacy. Speak openly with God again. Not formal words, but honest ones. Tell Him your concerns. Tell Him your hopes. Tell Him your fears. Alignment grows through conversation. Also guard your inputs carefully in this season. What you listen to, what you watch, what you entertain mentally, all of it shapes your spiritual sensitivity. You cannot expect sharp discernment if your mind is constantly flooded with noise. Your house must become a sanctuary again. Not perfect, but intentional. If tension arises, address it calmly. If doubt whispers, confront it with truth. If opportunities appear, evaluate them prayerfully rather than emotionally. You are in a pivotal stretch. The enemy failed to derail you last night, but that does not mean he will stop observing. However, you do not need to live defensively. You simply need to live consciously. Jesus is not weeping because He expects you to carry this alone. He is weeping because He longs for you to recognize how deeply He is involved in your life. He intervened because you matter. He blocked the attack because your future matters. He reinforced the hedge because your household carries value. And now He waits for you to step forward, not in fear, but in awareness. The next revelation will uncover why this season is also connected to a long-standing prayer you may have almost forgotten, and how that forgotten request is about to resurface in a way you did not anticipate. Servant of the Most High, there is a prayer you once whispered that heaven never forgot. It may have been years ago. It may have been during a season of tears, when you felt unseen and unheard. It may have been a simple sentence spoken under your breath. Lord, change this. Or Lord, use me. Or Lord, secure my house. You may not even remember the exact words, but heaven recorded the intention. And now that forgotten prayer is approaching manifestation. This is why last night mattered so much. When long-standing prayers begin to move toward fulfillment, there is often a surge of spiritual resistance. Not because the prayer was wrong, but because its fulfillment carries weight. That prayer you spoke was not small. It invited transformation. And transformation disrupts comfort zones, not only yours, but sometimes others as well. Jesus protected you because what is about to surface is directly connected to that old request. You asked for growth. Growth requires stretching. You asked for stability. Stability requires strengthening. You asked for purpose. Purpose requires preparation. And preparation sometimes looks like confrontation in the unseen realm. Last night's attempted disruption was a reaction to answered prayer. You thought heaven was silent because time passed. But silence in heaven does not mean inactivity. There were alignments happening. There were delays that protected you from premature exposure. There were closed doors that saved you from detours. Now the timing is ripening. Something related to that prayer will begin to reveal itself subtly at first. It may not look dramatic. It may come as a conversation, an invitation, a new responsibility, or even a sudden clarity about what you must release. But when it appears, something inside you will recognize it. You will feel familiarity. That familiarity is the echo of your old prayer. The enemy sensed movement around that promise. That is why interference was attempted. If your house had been shaken, you might have misinterpreted the unfolding as trouble instead of fulfillment. But your atmosphere was preserved so you could discern properly. Here is what you must do now. Revisit your heart. Ask yourself what you once desired deeply but gradually stop expecting. Write it down if necessary. Bring it back into conscious awareness. Because God is not resurrecting it randomly. He is aligning you with it intentionally. This is not the season to shrink back into doubt. It is the season to prepare responsibly. There may be adjustments required. Old habits that must be released. Patterns that need correction. Not as punishment, but as refinement for capacity. When blessing increases, responsibility increases with it. Jesus weeps because sometimes when prayers are finally answered, people are too distracted to recognize them. They ask for change, but when change begins, they resist it because it feels unfamiliar. Do not resist your own prayer. Last night was heaven's way of saying, this one must not miss the moment. The hedge around your house was reinforced because your environment needs to remain steady while this prayer unfolds. Turbulence could distort your perception. Peace will sharpen it. Now listen carefully. If this message has stirred something in you, if a memory of an old prayer has just surfaced, respond intentionally. Type "My prayer is rising" in the comments if you feel that stirring in your spirit. Blessing code 2888 is now activated over forgotten promises. As you declare it, you align your voice with what heaven is reviving. And understand this deeply. This channel exists to awaken what people nearly gave up on. When you support this mission, you are not simply sustaining content. You are participating in answered prayer for countless homes. Every message released here becomes a seed planted in someone's midnight moment. Scripture declares, "Those who sow in tears shall reap in joy." This is not distant poetry. It is a living promise speaking over you. When you sow into a work that restores hope, you position yourself in a harvest of renewed expectation. If your heart is moved right now, that is your moment of obedience. When you give through super thanks, when you join as a member, or when you sow through the PayPal link in the description, you are watering ground where forgotten prayers are revived. You are pouring oil into lamps that guide families back to alignment. I declare over every seed released in faith, the prayer you almost forgot will not fade. It will surface with clarity. It will manifest with stability. And your house will witness the goodness of God without interruption. Do not delay when the Spirit nudges you. Act boldly. Strengthen this mission. Let your giving become a prophetic agreement with your own rising promise. What is about to unfold next will reveal how timing and obedience must meet in the same moment for fulfillment to accelerate. And that intersection is closer than you think. Vessel of promise, timing, and obedience are about to meet in the same moment in your life, and that intersection will determine the speed of your fulfillment. There are seasons where God prepares quietly, and then there are moments where He expects movement. Preparation without obedience leads to delay. Obedience without preparation leads to frustration. But when both aligned, acceleration happens. You are entering an intersection. The prayer that is resurfacing will soon require a response from you. Not just belief. Action. It may be a step that feels small but carries large consequence. It may require courage to speak, courage to apply, courage to release, or courage to begin. Last night's protection ensured that when this moment arrives, you will not be too shaken to recognize it. Understand this clearly. Fulfillment is not automatic simply because a promise exists. Promises often require participation. God opens doors, but you must walk through them. God presents opportunity, but you must respond. And here's where many miss their moment. They hesitate. Hesitation often disguises itself as wisdom. It says, wait a little longer. It says, maybe later. It says you are not fully ready. But sometimes hesitation is simply fear wearing a thoughtful mask. Discernment will be crucial. When the opportunity connected to your old prayer appears, you will feel both excitement and intimidation. That combination is normal. Anything meaningful stretches you. But remember this: peace beneath pressure signals alignment. If the step before you carries a steady undercurrent of peace, even if your emotions are nervous, that is a sign to move. If it carries confusion, chaos, and persistent unrest, pause and seek clarity. The enemy failed to disturb your house last night, but he may attempt to introduce doubt when the opportunity emerges. Doubt is quieter than attack. It whispers instead of strikes. It questions instead of confronts. You are not ready. What if it fails? What if people judge you? These whispers are designed to stall obedience, but you were preserved for movement. Jesus wept over your silence because silence during opportunity can close doors that were meant to open. When heaven creates an intersection, it does not remain open indefinitely. Timing matters. There will be a narrow window where your yes will activate acceleration. If you delay too long, the opportunity may shift to another route. Not because God abandons you, but because destiny flows forward. You are not meant to watch your life unfold from a distance. You are meant to participate in it boldly. Something about the coming days will feel different. Conversations may align unexpectedly. Information may reach you at the perfect moment. A connection may form that feels almost orchestrated. That is not coincidence. That is convergence. Convergence happens when preparation, protection, and promise meet, and you are standing on the edge of it. This is why your house had to remain stable. Turbulence clouds perception. Peace sharpens it. If chaos had entered your environment, You might misinterpret divine timing as random chance. But now you are alert. You are aware. You are positioned. Let go of the mindset that says you must feel completely confident before you move. Confidence often grows after obedience, not before it. Also understand that obedience does not mean recklessness. Seek confirmation. Pray. Reflect. But do not allow endless analysis to become avoidance. You have been shaped for this. The delays of the past were not denials. They were development. The disappointments you experienced were not proof of incapacity. They were preparation for resilience. The nights you questioned your direction were not wasted. They strengthened your discernment. And now, when the intersection appears, you will not be stepping blindly. You will be stepping prepared. The hedge around your house remains intact because stability must continue while you move forward. Guard your peace in these days. Protect your focus. Limit unnecessary drama. Speak life over your decisions. Because when timing and obedience meet, acceleration follows. The next revelation will uncover what could happen if you ignore this intersection, and why heaven is urging you not to let fear or distraction steal a moment that has been years in the making. Steadfast heart, there is something you must understand with complete clarity. Ignored intersections become future regrets. When heaven aligns timing and obedience, it is not casual. It is intentional. And if fear, distraction, or silence causes you to miss the moment, the consequence is not punishment, it is postponement. What could have accelerated may instead circle back later, requiring another season of preparation. Jesus is weeping not because he doubts you, but because he sees how close you are to a defining decision. If you ignore this intersection, here is what could happen. The opportunity may not vanish dramatically. It may simply fade. The conversation may lose momentum. The invitation may shift to someone else. The clarity you feel right now may slowly dull under daily distractions. And you might later say, I almost stepped into something. Almost is one of the quietest thieves of destiny. The enemy understands this. He does not always try to destroy you outright. Sometimes he simply tries to delay you long enough that the fire cools. He introduces minor distractions. He amplifies minor insecurities. He encourages you to wait just a little longer until urgency fades. That is why awareness right now is everything. Last night's intercepted attack was not just about safety. It was about safeguarding your momentum. If chaos had shaken your household, your attention would have shifted to survival instead of advancement. You would have been too busy stabilizing damage to recognize opportunity. But there was no damage. There was preservation. Now the responsibility shifts gently to you. When the intersection appears, you must not overthink yourself out of obedience. Yes, seek wisdom. Yes, confirm alignment. But do not let endless analysis mask fear. There will never be a perfect moment where all variables are controlled. Growth requires stepping into unknown elements with trust. You asked for change once. Change is now approaching with structure. Do not retreat into comfort because it feels safer. Comfort rarely produces calling. And listen carefully, there is also a subtle warning here. If you repeatedly ignore divine intersections, your sensitivity decreases. It becomes harder to recognize future ones. Not because God stops speaking, but because your spirit becomes accustomed to hesitation. That is why this moment matters deeply. You are being invited to act when clarity arrives. You are being called to speak when confirmation settles. You are being urged to move when peace aligns. Do not let social media noise, random opinions, or daily busyness drown out what is unfolding. Guard your focus intentionally. You cannot afford spiritual distraction in this hour. If this message is awakening something inside you, engage with it. Do not remain a passive listener. Declare in the comments that you will not miss your moment. When you put your agreement into words, you strengthen your resolve internally. Share this message with someone who have been standing at an intersection but hesitating. They need this push. Subscribe and stay connected here, because what is being revealed is not generic motivation. It is precise timing. Stand with this channel, support it, and help ensure these warnings and awakenings continue reaching those on the edge of decision. And trust me, what is about to be revealed next will bring everything together in a way you did not expect. You will see why the phrase "only 7 minutes left" was not about panic, but about priority. There is a narrowing window where clarity and courage must meet. If you ignore it, life will continue. You will survive. But survival is not the same as stepping into destiny. If you respond, acceleration begins. You are closer than you think. The coming revelation will uncover how the hedge of protection around your house is directly connected to your obedience at this intersection, and why dawn represents more than just a new day. It represents a spiritual reset that could either solidify your covering within it through neglect. Awakened soul, dawn is more than the rising of the sun. It is a spiritual reset point. Every dawn carries transition. Night closes. Light emerges. What was hidden becomes visible. And in the spirit, dawn often represents accountability. It is the moment when what was whispered in the dark must be acknowledged in the light. When Jesus said there were only 7 minutes left to accept this divine intervention, it was not about fear-driven urgency. It was about spiritual priority before reset, before the next cycle begins, before another dawn seals what you chose to do with this revelation. The hedge of protection around your house is not a mechanical shield that operates without relationship. It responds to alignment. It strengthens through awareness. It thins through neglect. Not instantly. Not dramatically. Gradually. If you respond with obedience at this intersection, dawn becomes confirmation. The hedge solidifies. Your house enters the next phase with reinforced clarity. Peace deepens. Discernment sharpens. Momentum increases. But if you ignore this moment, if you allow distraction to carry you away, dawn still comes, but without reinforcement. The hedge does not disappear violently. It simply is not strengthened. And what is not strengthened eventually weakens under pressure. This is why heaven pressed urgency into your spirit. Last night was intersection. This moment is invitation. Dawn will be outcome. You are not being asked for perfection. You are being asked for participation. Think about it carefully. How many times in the past did you sense a divine nudge and delay your response? How many times did clarity come, only to be buried under routine? How many intersections did you survive but not step through? Jesus weeps because he sees how capable you are. He sees the authority resting quietly within you. He sees the influence your obedience could release. He sees how different your household could feel if you consistently partnered with what he is doing. The coming dawn is symbolic of a new cycle beginning. The question is whether it begins with alignment or indifference. You still have time. Not time measured in hours, but time measured in attention. Pause. Reflect. Speak gratitude. Confirm your obedience internally. Decide that when the intersection appears, you will not retreat. The protection over your house is linked to your spiritual alertness. When you live consciously, the hedge thrives. When you drift, it strains. And here is something powerful. Protection is not only about defense. It is about capacity. When your house is covered, creativity flows easier. Conversations feel lighter. Decisions carry clarity. Stress loses dominance. But when alignment weakens, even small issues feel heavy. Dawn will amplify whatever you choose now. If you choose awareness, it amplifies peace. If you choose silence, it amplifies vulnerability. This is not manipulation. It is spiritual law. Partnership multiplies grace. Neglect limits flow. The intersection is still open. You are still aware. You are still positioned. There is something sacred about this exact moment. You could have ignored this message. You could have scrolled away earlier. But you are still here. That means something inside you recognizes weight. You not dismiss that recognition. The coming day will test your decision gently. Perhaps through a small opportunity. Perhaps through a conversation. Perhaps through an unexpected alignment that feels almost too precise to ignore. When it happens, remember this moment. Remember that protection was activated not just for safety, but for advancement. Remember that dawn is reset. Remember that silence weakens and agreement strengthens. You are not powerless in this process. Your response carries influence. The final revelation will seal everything. It will show you how to permanently anchor this protection over your house so that future nights do not require emergency interception, but operate under sustained covering born from consistent alignment. Faithful guardian of your house, this is where everything comes together. Protection was never meant to be emergency-based. It was never meant to activate only when danger approaches. The goal was always sustained covering, steady, consistent, intentional alignment that keeps your household guarded without crisis-triggering intervention. Last night was mercy. This moment is establishment. The hedge around your house does not vanish suddenly at dawn like mist in the sun. It responds to spiritual climate. If your climate is gratitude, awareness, and obedience, the hedge strengthens naturally. If your climate is indifference, distraction, and silence, it thins gradually. You now understand something most people never realize. Protection is relational. Jesus does not guard you reluctantly. He guards you lovingly. But love desires partnership. To permanently anchor this covering, 3 things must become part of your rhythm. First, acknowledgement. Do not allow days to pass without recognizing his involvement. Gratitude is reinforcement. When you thank him intentionally, you signal awareness. Awareness invites increase. Second, declaration. Your house responds to your words. Speak peace regularly. Speak covering regularly. Not because you are afraid, but because you are aligned. Your voice carries authority inside your own territory. Third, obedience. When intersections appear, move. Do not postpone. Do not shrink. Do not silence conviction. Obedience is what keeps the hedge thick and stable. If you build these rhythms, future nights will not require urgent intervention. They will operate under established covenant. Jesus is no longer weeping in warning. He is waiting in hope. He protected you from a deadly attack you did not see because your story is not finished. Because your house carries purpose. Because your old prayer is rising. Because your intersection is active. Because your dawn is decisive. Now the decision rests gently but firmly in your hands. Will you live aware? Will you guard your atmosphere? Will you step into what is forming? This is the sealing moment. If this message has awakened you, type "My house remains covered" in the comments right now. Lesson code 7007 is released over your household. As you declare it, you are sealing this revelation with agreement. And hear this with spiritual clarity. What happened last night was not only about you. It was about the assignment over your house. This mission, these messages, exist so that homes do not remain unaware of what heaven is blocking on their behalf. When you support this work, you are not giving to a channel. You are strengthening a watchtower that warns, protects, and awakens families before crisis hits. The Lord says, "Bring the full tithe into the storehouse, that there may be food in my house, and test me in this." This is not history. This is a living invitation. When you sow into ground that protects souls, you position your own house under multiplied covering. If your spirit is stirred right now, this is your moment of action. When you release a super thanks, when you join as a member, or when you sow through the PayPal link in the description, you are pouring oil into a lamp that refuses to go dark. You are building a wall of light around households you may never meet on this earth. I declare over every seed given in obedience, your house will not lack protection. Your obedience will establish stability. Your generosity will return as peace, provision, and preserved destiny. Do not hesitate. Act in faith. Strengthen this mission. Anchor your covering. Dawn is here. Choose alignment.